Hello, this is going to be a quick tutorial just on the basic combat and traversal for Spider-Man 2 speedruns. This will help build the intuition on how you would approach any combat or any traversal in this game with general strategies that I use. This video is going to be pretty unstructured. We'll probably do a more in-depth combat guide in the future, but this will help beginners get an idea of what you need to know just to dive straight into speedruns. Alright? So we'll start with traversal, then head into combat, and then we'll do showcase the settings that we need to start a speedrun, or the settings that I use to start a speedrun at the very end of this video. So to start off, when you have no skills, like in the second mission, we use these ground pound cancels, kind of like using a swing to cancel out of a ground pound to get a lot of momentum. So let's see if I can do it right here real fast. Yep, just like that. So you ground pound, and you have to be pretty close to a wall and aiming a little bit towards the wall. But if you ground pound and swing anytime before you hit the ground, you can carry over that ground pound momentum into the swing momentum. And on top of that, you can open your web wings after the swing to carry that momentum into a great distance, pretty much. So let me show an example of that. Just like that. Pretty good to utilize that at the beginning. It also helps beginners build a great intuition of the kind of speed that you need to build for the web wings to travel great distances. Going on from there, though, we're gonna go to our first skill, the slingshot launch. So charging this up all the way isn't going to be useful, so it just takes too long to charge up for the distance that it gives. What is useful about the slingshot launch, though, is that you can rooftop hop with it. So kind of like you do an initial launch, like hold L2 and X for the minimum time possible, like for a few milliseconds or something, and then you press L3 to dive down to another rooftop. You can also use this in large rooms, or if an objective is a block away. Unfortunately, most of our objectives are going to be across the city, but this works really great in stealth and in like small areas, you know, that you have to traverse. It's not used extensively, but it is helpful here and there. What is used extensively, though, is the air dash. So eventually, about an hour into any percent, you're going to invest into Spire Dash and this aerial skill. This aerial skill allows you to do basically 5 air tricks to replenish your Spire Dash. So we're going to do this combination of air dash and then a bunch of aerial tricks and then another air dash. Now, sorry about that, I had a cough. So what we want to do is try to maintain height with this air dash to mitigate, like we want to be doing our air dashes as fast as possible and to ensure that we're at a good height the entire time so we don't fall to the ground and have to like swing back up, you know? So we do a combination of web zips and web wings, like that combo specifically, between our air tricks to regain the dash without losing height. So we're gonna do 2 air tricks, then we're gonna do a web zip, web wing, then we're gonna do 3 air tricks, and by that point we should have the air dash replenished. So let me get that charged up. Let me just show an example. Let me focus here on it, of showing you an example of what this should look like. There's one. There's 2. There's 3. There's 4. Okay. So you get the idea of I do a few air tricks, then I do a web zip, web wings, more air tricks, and I also sometimes, if I really need to maintain height, I will do another web zip and web wings at the end of those last combos before I do the dash. I also do that because sometimes the air tricks don't go through, and that allows me another chance to perform air tricks after that final web zip and web wings to replenish the dash. I'll show you a few more examples. Another thing I need to note is that you want to alternate between the directions. So you don't want to do 3 front flips forward. You want to go like forward, left, right is usually what I do. I also do forward, down sometimes, but that can be a little bit trickier to time. I usually do that if I'm going from side, like if I do up, left, right, up, up, left, right, down, up, and then kind of like repeats. But in general, what most of us agree on is the best strategy is to do up, left, web zip, web wings, up, left, right. So like this. Still not performing it as well as I could, but it gives you a general idea of like how you want to go about it, you know? With practice and being fast enough, you can definitely execute them all in one go. But if you do need to do an extra air trick, like if one of them or 2 of them don't go through after the right input, just move down or back left. And just work on maintaining your height above all else after you do the air dash. But yeah, just trying to show you a few examples that you can look at my controller and learn from. But okay, I want to move on though, so let's go on to combat. So combat, the general strategy is always, the general strategy in my mind is always to web down enemies while I have web fluid available. So if there's enemies against the wall, try to web fluid them. If I'm one-on-one with just one enemy, I usually air launch them, 3 webs, and then I air yank them down. If I get hit, I can just do another web while they're on the ground, but like launch, or I can like web them in the air and then wait for them to fall. Boom. Launch. Kind of hard when there's multiple enemies around, but I want to show this one-on-one here. This. Yeah. But basically, I'm not going to show every situation. Combat can be very situational, but in general, you want to find ways to web enemies against walls or get them on the ground, or even to throw them off rooftops or into water. Usually getting them into this situation where you can easily dispose of them or to web them. I don't rely on 4-hit combos until I'm out of web fluid, or like I'm in this area where it doesn't seem like I can use the environment to my benefit at all. You know? After I web a few enemies, I usually get a finisher. So you always want to utilize a finisher. Sometimes you want to save them for like brutes and stuff later on, or for more expertise enemies. Like one example is the hunter with swords. They take 5 webs to web against the wall, so you usually want to save your finishers for those guys. But if you do use a finisher on anyone, you usually want to do a jump finisher. So you jump first and then press triangle and circle. And that is one of the fastest finishers. It also allows you to avoid doing co-op finishers like with Black Cat or Peter. Like if you have a combat companion fighting alongside you, because those finisher animations are really, really slow. But yeah. Web them against walls and floors, finishers, and then my other go-to is the web grabber. I personally, in my opinion, think the web grabber is pretty OP, especially when paired with this first upgrade, because throwables just do a lot of damage when they crash into enemies. But I'm going to talk about this as if I don't have this upgrade. So the web grabber presents a lot of opportunities to knock down enemies on the ground and web them. Okay, so I generally follow this strategy where I do a web grabber, enemies fall to the ground, I web them to the ground, and then I usually have enough for a finisher. So then I jump finisher, and when I do the finisher, I usually have this skill that I unlock after the Hunt to Live mission, or right before it, that allows me to replenish a gadget shot after a finisher. So this means I can go into this sort of gameplay loop in every combat situation where I do web grabber, web all the enemies on the ground, perform a finisher, and then rinse and repeat. Sometimes you won't have enough for a finisher after one web grab, which then you could do another web grab, or you could do a simple 4-hit combo. It's okay to do that once, or use an ability or surge if it makes sense to. Usually you want to wait for lots of enemies to be grouped together like that. But yeah, that's my general strategy towards combat. And then of course, like yanking enemies off of rooftops is also really helpful, especially early on and for the symbiotes, zombie dudes. Let's see, anything else I want to show off? Parrying can be decent if it's against like the sword hunters. Web zip in and then they'll instantly parry. Parries are really, like, they do twice the damage, something like that. So if you can get a parry, it's pretty helpful, but I wouldn't say it's worth waiting like 10 seconds for somebody to parry you. If you can force a parry though, it's generally a good strategy to go for it if you enjoy doing it, or if you think it's fast. I probably should be going for it more often in my runs, personally, but anyways, I'm getting a little bit off topic of like the general strategy. Some other things to know is, like I said, combat's very situational, so depending on enemy types, you may need to change up your strategy. I'll give you a couple of examples. The robo dogs, the best way to deal with them is to launch them into the air and then do 3-hit combo in the air, and then they turn into a bomb and you can use them as a bomb. The Talon drones, you can web zip them 3 times in the air and then yank them to the ground. Or you can just go for a swim and they'll dive bomb into the water and kill themselves pretty much. Definitely save finishers for like shield guys or for the sword hunters. Hunters have twice as much health as like the regular goons, so be aware of that. Definitely want to try to web the hunters when you get into hunter fights. There is a lot more just situational stuff, but I think that gives you guys a good general perspective on things. Now with settings. So settings, I have simplified puzzles on. Dodge, parry, you want this on default, otherwise you'll lose time. Chase assist, this doesn't matter. I like to have it on because I like to just wait for a certain moment and then I can charge forward and expect the triangle input to be at a car at a specific spot instead of having to chase it around. But yeah, it doesn't save time, so you don't, if you don't want that on, you don't need it on. QT autocomplete, definitely have this on. This saves a lot of time. Vibration and adaptive triggers off. I have 9.6 sensitivity and then like no shake or no movement of the camera. Audio, you want to have the podcast off, otherwise it'll delay the mission starts, or it could delay the mission starts while you're in like open world waiting times. I've turned off streaming mode and I haven't had any copyright issues on Twitch or YouTube, so I want to say it's should be fine to have this off, but yeah, just talking from my experience in case anyone's curious. Subtitles I would have on for visual cues when dialogue ends for some things. Visual settings, none of this should matter, but if in case you want to copy what I have. I also have center dot on, which is cool. You want to have show tutorials off. You don't get this option until after you beat the game. But yeah, show tutorials off saves a lot of time, especially on the first few missions. If we have an auto splitter, you might have to have this off, but as of right now, we don't have an auto splitter, so don't worry about it. This is just all the same settings that we've already gone through. Shortcut buttons, I'm gonna explain this very, very briefly. Charge jump shortcut doesn't really save any time. You can instantly rise to top height quicker, but there is no strat with it, so it doesn't really save time. Now with the photo mode, I do this thing called create menu abuse. Now, if you're a beginner, I wouldn't really worry about it too much. Saves maybe a minute overall in the run. But I use the shortcut button of the photo mode while holding a button. I hold L1, but you have to hold a button. And if I do it like you saw, I can open the create menu and still move around. This allows me to also open the map and have the whole open world still progress in real time while I'm in the menus. So I can invest in skills, do whatever I want. And this means that if I'm waiting for a mission to spawn, or if I'm at a symbiote nest waiting for the countdown to go down, those times will still progress while I'm still investing in skills in the menu. So it saves about a minute if you add up all the times I do it in the run. There's like 2 or 3 different times where I utilize it, kind of. But yeah, that's just the big overview of everything. Don't have anything else to talk about. It's 17 minutes already, so this recording's longer than I expected. But yeah, if you have any questions, ask me on Discord. Love to answer them. I'm sure any of the runners here would love to answer them too. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me. Thanks for watching.